The breakneck speed at which Blizzard has been delivering content updates for us in Dragonflight has been quite impressive, to be honest. Now we are talking about 10.1.7, yet another minor patch before the next season and the next big patch, which is presumably 10.2. Now, it would be too early to talk about any possible balance tuning or any possible major changes to classes or specs or gameplay features that comes in what is probably going to be 1.5, perhaps even 2 months from now. What instead is worth talking about is a feature which is already testable on the PTR, which is the pings. The pings mechanic, the pings feature coming in 10.1.7. Now, if you are confused or if you were unaware of this, we are talking about the same pings you might have seen in other games like Destiny or like League of Legends, MOBAs in general, having this feature to be able to better communicate with your teammates. I find it quite interesting to talk about because, yes, perhaps if you are in a raid, for example, there might not be that much of a need to use pings because you expect it to be more coordinated, you expect it to be in voice communication with your raid leader, for example, so there might be much less of a need for you to coordinate around your group with pings. But however, one of the, for example, more participated in content is Mythic Plus, is PUGs in Mythic Plus specifically, and that is where you might find a better use for this system. Pings at the moment come in one flavor that you can just click with your keybind of choice. You select whichever keybind you want, and then with your mouse button you can click and the ping will appear wherever you want it to be. Now, there is also what is also been added in multiple other games, which is the ping wheel. Now, at the moment, we do have 4 different pings available, ping types available. We have assist, warning, attack, and on my way. Those are the 4 that can come from the wheel. If you use the normal ping without using the wheel, it's described right now in-game as the non-threatening alert. Now, this is quite interesting because you can start thinking about doing a few things with these pings. For example, you can imagine yourself in a Mythic Plus pool and the tank might be pinging 2 different packs, 2 different enemies from 2 different packs, and then maybe ping on my way in between those 2 packs to give you the idea that the tank is planning to pull both of those packs at the same time, for example. He can use the warning ping to track a path. For example, if you want to skip, if you want to move past a certain group of enemies, the tank might be showing you a path to go for to avoid, for example, a patrol. Maybe you might be pinging the patrol to warn players that the patrol is coming with a warning ping that you are supposed to not pull that patrol, for example. Maybe you might be using the attack ping as a better way to make players aware of focusing a certain enemy more so than the skull marker that you can already put on enemies, as an extra warning for players to focus a certain dangerous enemy. You can also start thinking ahead. It might be good for thinking ahead. For example, you are finishing one pack of enemies, right? The tough part of the pack is now gone. The enemies are at like low HP, they're about to die, so you're about to move to the next group, and you can already start thinking about pinging a certain pack, pinging the next path you're going to take in the route of your Mythic Plus key, for example, to make it easier for your group to coordinate. So that's what might be good about the ping system, right? Being able to give more coordination to the group. It has been perhaps a source of complaint for many players that in Mythic Plus recently, for example, we have gotten more requirements of coordinated plays, making it more challenging for PUGs, more challenging for casual groups not in voice comms to be able to deal with certain mechanics or deal with certain enemies because they have no way to communicate properly. Now, a ping system perhaps might make it easier. Now, we do have some questions about the ping system. For example, at the moment you can use roughly 3 pings in quick succession. There is a limit to the amount of pings you can be using, so you can't actually just spam pings non-stop. You can usually have 3 of your pings out at any time. Sometimes you can have 4 for just a few seconds before one disappears and you're back to having 3 pings. So you don't have an infinite amount of pings you can constantly spam. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be an option to remove or to mute or to simply not allow certain players to ping, so you can't actually ignore something that might be happening, something like a classic of MOBAs, like for example a player does a mistake, like fails to interrupt or gets hit by a frontal, and a bunch of players are going to spam the warning ping on the guy's head because he failed a mechanic, for example. That might something that could happen, since we have seen this happening before in other games when players have access to pings, using pings to annoy other players or to just grief or troll other players. That might be something that could happen in Mythic Plus as well, in a Mythic Plus group as well. Now, at the moment also, there does not seem to be a way to change, for example, the sound, either the volume of the sound or the type of the sound being made by the pings. Same goes for the icons. There doesn't seem to be a way to change the icons of the pings. Also for you, there is no way to modify the text or the warning that shows up in chat when it comes to pings. That might something that might change in the near future from Blizzard. Pings can be used either on the ground or by directly clicking on one of the mobs. In that case, the ping will stick and follow the mob that you pinged for a few seconds before disappearing. The ping wheel itself will work slightly differently than other wheels you might have used before, in the sense that now you have to click with your mouse in the position you want to make the ping show up, and then hold left click while dragging the mouse button down to make the wheel appear. In other games, you might have made the wheel appear right in the center of the screen, select the ping you wanted, and then move your mouse to the location in which you wanted to make the ping appear. Right now, in-game, you have to first move the mouse in the position you want to make the ping appear, and then you can make the ping wheel appear right over there. I think it's slightly less intuitive and slightly more clunky than other ping wheels you might have been used to, but overall, it can function with the same purpose, the purpose of allowing your group of uncoordinated strangers you have not met before ever to sort of manage your way around the Mythic Plus key a little bit better. Now, you might have noticed that when I mentioned and talked about these pings, I often talked about the tank. Maybe the tank can ping this or that, maybe the tank can ping the next pack they are doing, maybe the tank can ping the next route, the next path you are taking in the key. Yes, it feels like this might be just another feature that tanks have to pay attention to, and for example, just naming one, DPS players don't really have to care nearly as much, as you assume that the tank is the one that is choosing the route, the tank that is the one that is moving the group around the key, the dungeon, so you might think that the pings are also going to be used more often by the tank players. That perhaps might be one of the slight negatives, having to put even more responsibility or even more expectations on the tank, right? Imagine if the ping wheel comes out and now suddenly the meta is that everyone expects tanks to be like a tour guide and cleanly and precisely ping everything that's supposed to happen in a key to make it easier for the rest of the party to move around. You know, that would put even more strain, even more stress on the tank while he's playing, without having to put too much of it on DPS players or perhaps even healers. That might be, from a social standpoint perspective, the worst things when it comes to pings, having to generally fall on a particular player, on a particular role, more so than the others in the group. I still think that overall it's a pretty good addition. There are of course going to be many players who are worried about the griefing usage of these pings in your group, but I still think that, you know, overall you are in the same group for the same purpose. You're not playing in a PvP game. You are trying to all do the same thing with the same goal against AI, against robots, against bots in Mythic Plus, so there should be a little bit more of a team play, a little bit more of a cohesive idea of wanting to clear the dungeon in time. So I don't think players will feel nearly as triggered, nearly as tilted like in other PvP games when they want to use their pings. So I do think that this ping system might have a better use, a better system when it comes to WoW, especially in Mythic Plus, as I said, where it will likely have more use compared to other game modes. Let me, of course, guys, know what you think about this new introduced system, if you think it will be used properly, if you think it will be used smartly by the player base and effectively improve your stay in Mythic Plus and make coordinating in a PUG group in Mythic Plus more simple by using the system, or if it will not be used nearly as much, if it will be abandoned, for example, and not many groups will care about using this new ping system. Let me guys know which side of the argument you are on. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you to the rest of the start of your week. So on this Monday, we are thanking everyone, starting of course with our Patreon supporters for the contribution and the help to the growth of the channel. You can still, as usual, support completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. With these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, on this one I have hope. I have decent hope that it might have some good use in the community.